So Eric Greitens came out this week. Let's get back to our local issues here. Eric Greitens came out this week and said that he completely ruled out any state funding for stadiums. And he was specifically asked about the Major League Soccer stadium. What do you think about that? I'll take your phone calls on that. 314-969-9797, 866-455-9797. I mean, soccer's not my sport, but I would be happy to have a professional soccer team here. Do I think that my tax dollars should subsidize that? No more than I think it should subsidize an NFL team or a hockey team or any other professional sports team. I just don't. If the market will bear the sport, the people will turn out and buy the tickets and buy season tickets, and it'll pay for itself. We've had the folks from the Show Me Institute on here enough times that hopefully you understand, because you're an educated listening audience, that there's no return on the investment for taxpayers, other than the fact that if you're a soccer fan, I guess your return would be you'll have a Major League Soccer team here that you can go see their games. So some of you get a return immediately. But for the ones that don't care much about soccer or football or hockey or whatever the case may be, financially you don't see the reward from that. Now, here's what Governor-elect Greitens said on Monday while taking questions over in Delwood. To be very clear, I have completely ruled out state funding for stadiums, which means the guys that want City of St. Louis to chip in the state $40 million probably aren't going to get it based on this. And now they're saying that he called the proposal's future doubtful, one of the sponsors for that proposal in the city. The Post even went so far as to address my concerns on this is if we've got an empty dome sitting there, why don't they use that? Well, because Major League Soccer won't do that. You'd have to open the roof. You'd have to put turf, like real grass. They'd have to dig up the floor of the existing thing. It would cost $100 million to make the dome usable as a soccer stadium. So instead, you should just give us 40 and we'll chip in some more, and then we'll build a brand new one, which could be empty in 5 years, because you just don't know. That's why you're not going to get your money back out of something like that. And the reason I bring that up is today, the St. Louis Blues and city leaders, including Mayor Slay and the folks from the Sports Commission and downtown STL, came out and basically asked for taxpayer money, $4 million a year in tax revenue for I don't know how many years to help finance bonds to go toward renovation costs under a plan to be submitted to the Board of Aldermen. Now, I like Francis Slay personally, but he is freewheeling when it comes to spending your tax dollars. This is the guy that wants to spend $2 billion on Metrolink. Great idea. No, thank you. Little too expensive. So here we turn right around again, and we're asking for this money. Let's listen to these sound bites, Liz, if you don't mind, that I pulled up in the folder earlier for the Blues. So the Blues chairman, Tom Stillman, was the one who was speaking this morning about the fact that basically Scottrade, as it is no longer competitive. If we don't do something, if we don't build it, they're going to stop coming, is what he's saying.
In fact, the NCAA, the various conferences, the concert promoters have all made clear that they are not going to continue coming to the Scottrade Center. And that's not because St. Louis is getting outworked or outclassed by any other city. That is not the case. It's just because the Scottrade Center is no longer competitive with the arenas.
Where have we heard this before? Oh, yes, the Edward Jones Dome, right before the Rams left town. Now, we knew it was coming, and they even tried to negotiate it, but then we've got Jeff Fisher admitting that he knew several years ago they were moving to L.A., so it was all just a waste of time. I'm not suggesting that the Blues are moving, not suggesting that, but this guy, this Blues chairman, Tom Stillman, sat up there and poor-mouthed today that the Blues barely break even. But yet they're willing to invest $90 million in this building if the city will pitch in as well. And you know, I'm all for being big-hearted, but do you believe that these folks are just breaking even? That they're barely keeping their heads above water? I mean, my guess is they're not living in a 2-room bungalow down in Dogtown somewhere. I could be wrong. Somebody's making money off the Blues being here. But bear in mind that the city apparently owns Scottrade. So they're offering to chip in if the city will chip in. Here's how that would work. Let's listen real quick to the next bite.
Blues ownership would invest an additional $90 million in the building over the life of the bonds. This would come in the form of a self-imposed CID tax and annual capital expenditure and maintenance expenses. The proposed city investment of $4 million a year would come entirely, and I mean every penny, 100%, from the city taxes that are paid directly by the arena and the Blues.
So you heard him mention a CID there. That's a community improvement district is what he's talking about. But here's my question. He's trying to stress that the $4 million from the city would come from money that's already generated every year by the Blues that goes to the city. But what's that money being spent on now? Right? The assumption is the city is tax starved. Every dime that comes into the city is already spent before it gets in the city treasury. It's already committed to something. So if you have to take $4 million away from what they're already spending, where do they make that up? Under the threat that if you don't do this, we won't get any more Frozen Fours or, NCAA basketball coming to town. Last time I checked, they played at the Dome, didn't they? When I went to see them, I think they played at the Dome. I'm just saying. Once again, they're going to go back to the taxpayers for this at a time when they also want you to vote on a tax increase for Metro and all these other issues, or help finance a public soccer stadium. Where's the money? Where's the money going to come from in the city? Unless we're better together. Wonder what their goal is here. You have to look at the end goal. Sam, thanks for the phone call. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Mark. I do think they've had early round NCAA tournament games there at Scottrade. I think it's when they've had later, it's been at the Dome.
Okay.
But what my point was, if it is coming from ticket revenue, from Blues tickets, from concerts, I don't so much have a problem with that, and a lot of people I know wouldn't either, especially if it has a possibility of bringing more revenue in. I realize you're giving away revenue. Will it ever make up for that? That's another question. But if they're not saying that we're going to take your property taxes and spend it on it.
Well, they're not, but I guess this is how I look at it, Sam. When we talk about the fact that Planned Parenthood's not technically allowed to spend any of the federal dollars it gets on abortion, that's true. But if they've got 2 pots of money and they're getting $5 million from the federal government, then they can afford to spend their other $5 million on abortions. I only equate the two because the money all goes into one pot in the city. And if suddenly the $4 million the Blues are paying in has to go back out for service on these bonds, it's not money that the city has to spend on resources it's currently using that money for. I guess my question is, how are they going to make that up? You see what I'm saying? I'm not disagreeing. I think the people that attend, I go to concerts at Scottrade's where I'm most likely to go down there. I've been to the occasional hockey game. I'm not a big hockey fan. To me, this has nothing to do with the Blues. per se. They're the ones that kind of run the operation down there. I just question how the city can afford to give away that $4 million, which is effectively what they're doing. Scott, you're on the air.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. The
Sure.
Blues aren't going to give away, or the city's not going to give away $4 million. They're going to, increase taxes in some capacity on real estate or something else to offset that. My point is, calling in, is my concern is that there's a consistency here. You have the soccer team trying to land, or the soccer organization trying to land a new stadium. The Blues trying to feed off the taxpayer system here. And my correlation is that you have this organization in Maryland Heights, Worldwide Technology, who Jim Cavanaugh is the CEO of, and he's also a minority owner in the Blues, and they're both trying to receive tax credits, just like Maryland Heights, also for the soccer stadium. And I think taxpayers have just had enough of this, of feeding off the system. So I think there's a lot of people, ownership, that are involved in this, that are have a history of receiving tax credits from the St. Louis County and St. Louis City in the past. They're continuing to roll on.
And Scott, I would agree with you, and I think that it was reflected in the vote this past November. I think that feeling that we've had enough is kind of reflected in that vote. I appreciate the call. Happy New Year to you, Scott. Thanks for calling. 314-969-9797. If a line becomes available, I'm going to